Hey, so for today's episode, we're going to talk about how to write when you have a lot of technical information and how to extract that information from your team if you're not from the industry. So you don't want to miss out on today's episode.
Welcome to IndustrialSage, a free video podcast series all about digital marketing for industrial manufacturers. Hear interviews with your peers and find out how they're solving the same challenges that you might be facing in your own field. Coming to you from the Optimum Production Studio in Atlanta, Georgia, this is IndustrialSage.
Okay, so for the episode that we have today, we have a great question that came in from a subscriber from Georgia. This is Georgia's question, and she says, I'm new to the manufacturing industry, and I would like to know how to deal with heavy and technical information when producing flyers, blogs, and updating the website. Not everyone understands technical language used by engineers, so what is the best way to get the process across in layman's terms? Okay, so that's a really good question. And I think there's a couple different ways to go about it. I think the first thing that we have to go back to is you have to understand, first of all, who is the audience that we're writing for? So a lot of times, what can be really challenging is, if you are selling to other engineers, and that's really sort of the approach that you're going, that's the buyer, then that's one approach. But if you've got engineers who are heavily involved in the sales and marketing process, and you are selling to non-other engineers or downstream, that's sort of another approach, and you can run into that, that can be really, really, really tricky. So let's talk about the whole sort of layman's terms on how to do that. Here's one of a really great tactic on how to do that is this kind of goes back to how to create your content to begin with, is really figure out what those sales questions are, those FAQs, those frequently asked questions that you get asked in the salesperson. So buddy up with the sales team. If you can, go spend some time with them, and ideally interview them. Interview them on video, or just interview them in person, and just ask hey, what are the difficult, or what are the number one questions that you get asked in the sales process, and just ask them questions, and just keep drilling down deeper and deeper until you get the answer. So if they come in and they give you an answer that's super technical, you're like, listen, I don't understand what that means. Talk to me like I'm in kindergarten. That's how I want you to explain it to me. And that's a really great technique to do that, especially if you are going to be really talking to a non-technical audience, because, if you're kind of going through that, then your audience likely is going to kind of go through that, that your customers, your prospects are going to be thinking the same thing, scratching their head saying, I don't know what in the heck these guys are talking about. And they because their product knowledge is up here, and you get it. You're in the weeds, and they love the product and how it works, and this and that and the other. They're talking at a whole other level. It's a completely different language, to be honest with you. And if that language is not spoken and understood by the buyer or the influencers who are going to either champion that decision to buy that product or service, then it's a lost cause. And I remember I've run into this. I can't tell you how many times. When you're creating content or you're doing videos or what have you, and there's a real big challenge that you get, people get really excited. They want to get into the weeds and technically, no, but this is how it works, and here's all the buttons and here's all the different things. And the reality of it is that maybe your end user, the person who's selling, doesn't really care about how that works. They care about the results. Now, don't get me wrong. It's kind of a blanket statement. It's somewhere down the line you're going to have to get into the weeds. And it's going to have to be, fairly technical. So having webinars and different things that you can use that are going to be a little bit more bottom of funnel, or maybe middle of funnel, where you can get into the weeds, use it there. But top of the funnel, again, if you're not talking engineer to engineer, and you're talking at a completely different level, then you don't get into the weeds. We're going to start that conversation at a higher level. So sit down with them, interview them, ask them, tell them to walk you through this like you're in kindergarten. Again, because your audience, if they're non-technical, that's the same thing. So your job is to be able to help to translate that and to really be an interpreter, if you will. So we really have to it's a difficult thing. It's a challenging thing. I'm not sure what industry you're from. Maybe we can circle back and get some more information about that, but that'd be certainly helpful. Now let's talk about if you are talking technical to technical. If you've got technical language, look, here's the thing. You're not going to be a subject matter expert on this overnight. It's not going to happen. It's going to take time. So what I would do is, it's going to take a little bit longer to be able to create content for this. You're going to do what I, sort of suggested in terms of, sitting down to really get a deep understanding so that from a fundamental level, you can kind of understand, what is going on, so that you can write that content, create those flyers, and then you're going to need to work with somebody, on your sales team, or, whether, hopefully maybe in, technical sales or just depending on how your organization is structured, who can help to sort of retranslate that back into technical speak. Do your absolute best. But yeah, I totally get it. That is definitely a challenge if you are writing, you don't have a technical background, but you are writing to a technical audience, because, it's literally like writing in a different language. And how would you write if you don't speak Spanish, you need to write something in Spanish? Start it in your language and then work with somebody to help to be able to translate it and sort of massage it. That's what I would do in those instances. So it's a really great question. Hopefully, that I was able to answer that for you. But there's some great things. So number one, just sit down. If you can just spend some time with the sales team to really get an understanding. I mean, if you can go and visit some of the facilities, if you've got a particular product that you're selling, go on customer visits. Spend a week with the sales team if your company will allow you to do that, to really immerse yourself in the industry, to be able to get an understanding and ask questions. Ask lots and lots of questions, and obviously certainly Google and look up all these different things to really educate yourself about what is going on. But I think sitting down there, immersing yourself, seeing everything, asking those questions, sitting down with him, doing that interview, say, hey, pretend that I'm in kindergarten, like just try to pull that information and just have that conversation is really going to go a long way. And that's really going to work in either instance. So that's all I got for you today. Short little episode today, but great question, Georgia. Thank you so much for asking that. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, please write in. We do this all day long. You can send it to industrialsage.com/questions, and we'll answer it for you on the show. So if you are listening on any of the podcasting stations, listen, we would love a review. If you're not on an email list, you need to get on that. We've got a lot of really great stuff that's coming down the pipe, and a lot of other content that you are not getting access to on the podcast. So that's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for listening and or watching, and I'll catch you next week on Industrial Sage.